Amara Kingston sat in Crestwood Academy's detention room, her heart pounding as Ms. Evelyn Holt sneered, "You don't belong here, girl." The teacher's pen scratched out an expulsion notice for Amara's late homework, a minor infraction. Suddenly, Holt spat a racial slur loud enough for classmates to hear. Gasps erupted. Amara's eyes blazed with defiance, but the principal nodded approval. As she left, a text from her billionaire parents flashed. "We're coming." What would their fury unleash? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. Evi, you stand for justice. Hit like and subscribe for more gripping stories. Amara Kingston stood outside Crestwood Academy's gleaming glass boardroom, her stomach twisting as her parents, Darius and Lena Kingston, prepared to face the school's elite. The Atlanta sun blazed at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, but inside, the air felt colder, charged with tension. Amara's expulsion for late homework, a flimsy excuse, still stung, and Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur echoed in her mind, a jagged wound that refused to heal. Her parents, billionaire tech moguls who built Kingston Innovations from a garage into a global empire, had flown in from a Tokyo conference, their private jet touching down just hours ago. Darius, tall and imposing in a tailored navy suit, adjusted, his cufflinks, his dark eyes burning with controlled fury. Lena, elegant in a crimson blazer, clutched a tablet loaded with evidence, her jaw set like steel. Amara, 16 and wiry, pressed her ear to the door, catching snippets of the board's murmurs. The room held 12 board members, led by Richard Caldwell, a silver-haired trustee whose family owned half of Atlanta's real estate. His voice, smooth as polished marble, carried a hint of disdain. Amara's heart pounded. She knew Caldwell's reputation for dodging scandals with a smile. Inside, Darius's voice boomed, cutting through the room's hum. He recounted Holt's slur, his words precise, each syllable a hammer strike. Lena swiped her tablet, projecting a grainy video from a classmate's phone onto the boardroom screen. The footage showed Holt, her face twisted with venom, spitting the slur as Amara sat frozen in detention. Gasps rippled through the board, and a few members shifted uncomfortably, their polished loafers scuffing the oak floor. Amara's chest tightened. The video was her lifeline, proof that Holt's hatred wasn't just her word against a teacher's. Lena's voice, sharp and unyielding, demanded Holt's immediate suspension and a public apology. Caldwell leaned back in his leather chair, stroking his chin, his blue eyes glinting with calculation. He suggested a private reprimand, claiming a suspension might inflame tensions. Darius slammed his fist on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. He reminded them of Kingston Innovations' donations to Crestwood, $10 million over 5 years, and their influence in Atlanta's business circles. The board's faces paled. They knew the Kingstons could ruin them with a single press release. After a tense vote, 8 hands rose reluctantly and Caldwell, lips pursed, announced Holt's suspension without pay, effective immediately. Amara's shoulders sagged with relief, a smile breaking through her guarded expression. She hugged her parents as they emerged, their faces grim but triumphant. Darius ruffled her hair, promising to fight until she was reinstated. Lena whispered, "This is just the start, baby." Amara felt a spark of hope, believing justice was within reach. That evening, they celebrated at their Buckhead mansion, the skyline glittering 10 miles away. Amara, sprawled on a velvet couch, scrolled through supportive texts from classmates, her laughter filling the room. But as the clock struck midnight, an email pinged on Lena's phone, its subject line stark: "Scholarship termination notice." Amara's full-ride scholarship to Crestwood, her ticket to an Ivy League future, had been revoked due to administrative errors. The email cited vague policy violations, but the timing reeked of malice. Amara's stomach dropped, her dreams of college now dangling over a cliff. Darius's face darkened, his fingers tightening around his coffee mug. Lena's eyes narrowed, scanning the email for clues. They called the school, but the office claimed the decision was final, approved by Caldwell himself. Amara paced the marble floor, her sneakers squeaking, her mind racing. How could they strip her future so casually? The suspension had felt like a victory, a rare moment where her voice mattered, but this blow was sharper, more calculated. She remembered Caldwell's whisper as he left the boardroom, his voice low and venomous. "This isn't over." Now, his words took shape, a silent promise of retaliation. Lena dug into her laptop, tracing the scholarship's funding to a trust controlled by Caldwell's allies. Darius contacted their lawyer, but the school's legal team stonewalled, citing bylaws only a scholar could unravel. Amara's hope withered, replaced by a gnawing fear that Crestwood's walls hid more than one racist. She stared out at the city lights, her reflection pale in the glass. Holt was gone for now, but Caldwell's shadow loomed larger, his influence seeping into every corner of her life. She clutched her phone, rereading the email, its words a taunt. Ineligible for reinstatement. Her parents vowed to appeal, but Amara sensed the fight was far from won. Caldwell's move was a chess play, not a checkmate, and she braced for his next strike. The air grew heavy, the mansion's warmth no match for the chill of betrayal. Amara's dreams, once bright as the Atlanta skyline, now flickered, threatened by a system that saw her as less than human. She clenched her fists, resolve hardening, in her chest. If Caldwell wanted a war, she'd give him one, but the cost was already steeper than she'd imagined. Amara Kingston slumped on her bed in the Buckhead mansion, the Atlanta skyline a faint glow through her window, 10 miles distant in the humid 80-degree night. Her scholarship's revocation stung like a fresh cut, but the memory of Ms. Evelyn, Holt's racial slur burned deeper, a wound that fueled her resolve. Crestwood Academy's board, led by the snake-like Richard Caldwell, had stripped her future with a single email, and Amara refused to stay silent. Her fingers trembled as she opened her phone, the screen's blue light casting shadows on her face. She recorded a video, her voice steady but raw, detailing Holt's slur, the unfair expulsion for late homework, and the scholarship loss. Tears glistened in her brown eyes, but her words were fire, calling out Crestwood's systemic racism. She posted it on social media, tagging Atlanta news outlets, her heart racing as the upload bar filled. Within hours, the video exploded, racking up 2 million views by dawn. Hashtags like "Truck Justice for Amara" trended, and comments poured in, strangers from Chicago to Miami cheering her courage. A local activist group shared it, and a national talk show invited her to speak. Amara's chest swelled with hope, her phone buzzing with notifications as classmates texted support. Her parents, Darius and Lena, watched the numbers climb, pride in their eyes. Lena hired a top PR firm, Kingston Innovations resources flowing like a river to amplify Amara's voice. The firm crafted press releases, and by noon a major network ran a segment condemning Crestwood. Amara felt invincible, her story shaking the school's ivory tower. Could this be the turning point she'd prayed for? But Richard Caldwell, lounging in his downtown penthouse, wasn't idle. His fingers danced across his laptop, feeding lies to a local news blog with deep ties to his real estate empire. The blog published a hit piece, painting Amara as a troubled student with a history of disruptive behavior. No evidence, just venom, but it spread like wildfire. Racist trolls swarmed Amara's social media, their messages vile, calling her family uppity, and worse, their words laced with slurs that echoed Holt's. One threat promised to find her at home, listing her street name. Amara's breath caught, her hands shaking as she blocked accounts, but they multiplied like roaches. She curled up, the room spinning, the weight of hate crushing her spark. Darius installed extra security, but the threats kept coming, each one bolder. Lena's PR firm countered, releasing a polished video of Amara's academic awards, her debate trophies gleaming under studio lights. The public swung back, donations flooding a fundraiser for her college dreams. By evening, a petition to reinstate. Her scholarship hit 50,000 signatures, and Amara's smile returned, tentative but real. She hugged her mom, whispering, "We're winning, right?" Lena nodded, but her eyes flicked to her phone, wary. The victory felt fragile, like glass under pressure. Then, a notification pinged, a dagger in the dark. Amara's best friend, Mia Carter, a Crestwood Jr. who'd filmed Holt's slur, had posted a screenshot of their private texts. The messages, taken out of context, showed Amara venting about a teacher, twisted to make her seem aggressive. Mia's caption read, "The truth about Amara. The post went viral, shared by Caldwell's blog, which claimed Amara manipulated Mia. Amara's jaw dropped, betrayal slicing through her. Mia, her confidant since freshman year, had sold her out. She called Mia, but the line went dead, blocked. Lena traced the post's spread, finding payments from Caldwell's shell company to Mia's account. Caldwell had bought her loyalty, turning Amara's ally into a weapon. The fundraiser stalled, donations plummeting as doubters called Amara a fraud. Her follower count dropped by 10,000 in an hour, each loss a punch to her gut. She stared at Mia's photo, their laughing selfie from last summer now a lie. The PR firm scrambled, but the damage was done. Amara's name dragged through the mud. Darius paced, his voice low. Caldwell's playing dirty. Lena's fingers flew across her tablet, planning a counterattack, but Amara felt the walls closing in. Her video, once a beacon, now fueled a firestorm of hate. She stood at her window, the skyline mocking her, its lights blurred by tears. The public's love had lifted her, but their betrayal cut deeper, orchestrated by a man who'd never let her win. Could she claw her way back from this? Hey viewers, what would you do if your best friend stabbed you in the back for money? Drop a comment with number 1 if you'd fight through the betrayal like Amara, and don't forget to like and subscribe to follow her battle for justice. Will Amara's next move outsmart Caldwell, or has he already set a trap she can't escape? Amara Kingston sat in her family's Buckhead mansion, the Atlanta skyline a distant shimmer 12 miles away, but the weight of Mia's betrayal pressed heavier than the humid 85-degree evening air. Her viral video, once a beacon of hope, now fueled a vicious smear campaign orchestrated by Richard Caldwell, Crestwood Academy's puppet master. Mia's leaked texts, twisted to paint Amara as a liar, had cost her public support, and the scholarship revocation still loomed, a guillotine over her college dreams. Amara's parents, Darius and Lena, refused to let Caldwell win. Over breakfast, their dining room gleaming with crystal chandeliers, Darius slammed his coffee mug down, his voice a low growl, vowing to force Crestwood to face its racism. Lena, her tablet glowing with legal documents, proposed a school-wide investigation, leveraging their billionaire status to pressure the board. Amara, her braids pulled tight, nodded, her heart flickering with cautious hope. She spent hours preparing her testimony, scribbling notes on a legal pad, each word a weapon against Holt's slur and Caldwell's lies. The investigation hearing, held in Crestwood's auditorium, felt like a courtroom, its polished stage lit by harsh spotlights. Amara, in a navy blazer, stood before the committee, her voice steady as she recounted Holt's racial slur, the expulsion for late homework, and the scholarship's mysterious end. Her classmates packed in the back whispered support, their phones recording every word. Darius and Lena sat in the front row, their presence a silent thunderclap, daring the board to dismiss their daughter. The committee, 5 stern-faced administrators, nodded gravely, promising a thorough review. A local news crew tipped off by Lena's PR firm broadcast the hearing live, and social media buzzed with justice for Amara again. Amara's chest swelled, her testimony a spark igniting change. Could this be the moment Crestwood crumbled? The committee adjourned, pledging a verdict within days, and Amara left the auditorium, her parents' arms around her, feeling like she'd moved mountains. But Richard Caldwell, in his oak-paneled office, was already pulling strings. He stacked the committee with loyalists, old friends from Atlanta's elite clubs, each owing him favors. Late at night, over whiskey and cigars, he coached them to bury Amara's claims, framing her as an overly sensitive teen. The committee's report, released 3 days later, was a gut punch. It dismissed Amara's testimony as exaggerated, citing insufficient evidence of Holt's slur, despite the classmates' video. Worse, it reinstated Holt, claiming her suspension was unfairly punitive. Amara read the report on her phone, her hands shaking, the words blurring through tears. She ran to Crestwood, hoping it was a mistake. But there was Holt, striding through the hallway, her smirk sharp as a blade. Holt leaned close, her breath hot, whispering, "Back where I belong, girl." Amara's fists clenched, but classmates stared, some snickering, their support eroded by Caldwell's smear. She fled to the parking lot, her sneakers slapping pavement, her hope shattered. That night, under a moonless sky, a sharper blow landed. Amara woke to shattering glass, her heart lurching as she ran to the garage. The family's sleek black SUV parked 50 feet from the mansion was a wreck, its windows smashed, racial slurs carved into the hood with a knife. Red paint dripped like blood, spelling out hatred across the doors. Darius called the police, but the responding officer, a grizzled man with a Caldwell campaign sticker on his truck, shrugged it off as kids' pranks. Lena's camera flashed, documenting every scratch, but the officer yawned, refusing to file a report. Amara stood in the driveway, the air thick with gasoline fumes, her body trembling. The investigation, her moment to shine, had been a farce, rigged from the start. Holt's return was a slap, but the vandalism was a scream, a warning that Caldwell's reach was endless. Darius pulled Amara close, his voice steady, promising to fight on, but Lena's eyes darted to the shadows, sensing eyes watching. Amara's mind raced, replaying Caldwell's smirk at the hearing, his calm assurance that he'd win. The system wasn't just broken, it was built to crush her. She stared at the ruined SUV, its scars mirroring her own, and felt a fire kindle in her chest. If Crestwood wouldn't listen, she'd make them hear her. But the cost was climbing, and the next blow could be worse. Her family's wealth, their power, felt like paper against Caldwell's machine. She clutched her phone. The committee's report still open, its lies a challenge she couldn't ignore. How much more could she take before she broke? Amara Kingston stood in her family's Buckhead mansion, the Atlanta skyline a faint pulse 15 miles away. But the scars on their vandalized SUV, etched with racial slurs, burned brighter in her mind than any city light. The rigged investigation, Ms. Evelyn Holt's smug return, and Richard Caldwell's relentless campaign had stripped her scholarship, her reputation, and her sense of safety, leaving her trembling in the 90-degree morning heat. The police's dismissal of the vandalism, calling it a prank, was another slap, proof the system bowed to Caldwell's wealth. Amara's parents, Darius and Lena, paced the living room, their faces etched with fury, vowing to fight Crestwood's racism. Lena's tablet buzzed with messages from allies, while Darius, his voice a low rumble, suggested a public stand to shame the school. Amara, her braids loose, felt a spark ignite. She'd been silenced too long, her voice drowned by Caldwell's lies. She proposed a protest outside Crestwood, a bold move to rally Atlanta's heart. Her parents hesitated, fearing backlash, but Amara's eyes blazed, her resolve unyielding. She spent days organizing, texting classmates, calling local activists, and designing flyers on her laptop, each click a defiance of Caldwell's power. The protest day dawned, the sun scorching at 95 degrees, and Amara stood before Crestwood's iron gates, a megaphone in hand. 200 supporters, students, parents, and strangers moved by her viral video, filled the street, their signs demanding justice. Chants of "No more Holt" and "Reinstate Amara" echoed, shaking the academy's pristine facade. News vans parked 100 feet away, cameras rolling, broadcasting live to millions. Amara's voice soared, recounting Holt's slur, the expulsion for late homework, and the board's betrayal. Classmates cheered, their fists raised, and a local pastor prayed for change. Darius and Lena stood beside her, their presence a shield, their billionaire status drawing every eye. Amara felt unstoppable, her heart pounding with purpose. Was this the moment Crestwood's walls would crack? The crowd swelled, blocking the road, their energy electric. But Richard Caldwell, watching from his downtown office, smirked, his fingers dialing a private security firm he'd hired for the occasion. The firm, known for rough tactics, sent 20 guards in black vests, their batons gleaming. They pushed into the crowd, shoving protesters claiming public safety. Amara urged calm, her megaphone crackling, but a guard accidentally knocked a student down, sparking shouts. Another guard sprayed pepper spray, and chaos erupted. Fists flew, signs splintered, and screams pierced the air. Caldwell's media allies filmed selectively, framing Amara as the instigator. Police sirens wailed, and officers tipped by Caldwell stormed in, their boots pounding asphalt. They ignored the guards, targeting protesters, and zeroed in on Amara. Her megaphone fell as an officer twisted her arm, cuffing her wrists. She gasped, pain shooting through her shoulder, as he barked, "You're under arrest for inciting violence." The crowd roared, but batons pushed them back. Amara's parents shouted, demanding her release, but officers blocked them, their badges glinting with authority. Dragged to a squad car, Amara's sneakers scraped the ground, her mind reeling. She'd planned peace, not chaos, but Caldwell had twisted her dream into a nightmare. At the station, 10 miles from Crestwood, Darius and Lena posted bail, their lawyer arguing her innocence. Amara walked free, her wrists bruised, but the arrest stained her record, a black mark colleges would see. Her parents hugged her, promising to sue. But the weight of failure crushed her. She'd rallied a city, only to be branded a criminal. That night, in their temporary hotel, 3 miles from the ruined mansion, Amara's phone buzzed with an unknown number. A raspy voice whispered, "Caldwell sends his regards. Sleep light, girl." Her blood froze, the words a blade against her throat. She dropped the phone, her breath shallow, as Lena checked the locks. Darius scanned security feeds, his jaw tight, but the caller was gone, a ghost in the night. Amara curled up, the hotel's sterile walls closing in. The protest had felt like her triumph, a chance to reclaim her voice, but Caldwell's trap had snapped shut, turning her stand into a riot, her freedom into a cage. The death threat was a new beast, sharper than vandalism, promising blood. She stared at the ceiling, her heart a drumbeat of fear and defiance. Her parents' wealth couldn't shield her now, not from a man who played with lives like chess pieces. The arrest was a warning, the threat a vow, and Amara knew Caldwell's next move would be deadlier. She clutched her bruised wrist, the pain grounding her. If he wanted her broken, he'd have to try harder. But the cost was climbing, and her family's strength was fraying. Could she rise again, or was Caldwell's grip too tight? Legal battle begins. Climax, courtroom sabotage. Amara Kingston sat in a sterile Atlanta hotel room, 8 miles from the smoldering memory of their vandalized SUV, the death threat's raspy voice still echoing in her ears like a ghost in the raw, 90-degree dawn. The protest's failure, twisted into a riot by Richard Caldwell's hired goons, had left her arrested, her record tarnished, and her family on edge, their Buckhead mansion now a crime scene. Ms. Evelyn Holtz reinstated. Smirk and the rigged investigation burned in Amara's chest, each injustice a coal fueling her fight. Her parents, Darius and Lena, refused to let Crestwood's racism bury their daughter. Over a tense breakfast, the hotel's coffee bitter as their mood, Darius slammed his fist, vowing to sue the school for discrimination. Lena, her eyes sharp, contacted their lawyer, Sarah Nguyen, a legal shark who toppled corporate giants. Amara, her braids tied back, felt a flicker of hope, her bruised wrists a reminder of the protest's cost. She spent days preparing, memorizing her story, Holt's racial slur, the expulsion for late homework, the scholarship's theft, and Caldwell's puppetry. The courthouse, a stone behemoth downtown, loomed under a 100-degree sun, its steps swarming with reporters. Amara, in a crisp white blouse, walked beside Sarah, her parents' billionaire aura parting the crowd. Inside, the courtroom smelled of polish and power, its oak benches packed with spectators. Amara testified, her voice clear, recounting Holt's slur, the video evidence, and the board's lies. Her words landed like punches, and the judge, a gray-haired woman with a stern gaze, nodded, scribbling notes. Sarah presented the classmates' footage, its grainy frames silencing whispers. Reporters tweeted live, and soccer justice for Amara surged, hitting 3 million impressions. Darius gripped Lena's hand, their pride palpable, as spectators murmured, "Support." Amara's heart soared. The truth was finally heard. Could this courtroom be her salvation? The case gained steam, national outlets calling it a landmark fight against school racism. Sarah's arguments sliced through Crestwood's defense, their lawyer stammering under her cross-examination. Amara dared to dream of reinstatement, her college path restored. But Richard Caldwell, in a sleek office 20 miles away, wasn't sweating. He'd slipped $10,000 to a court clerk, a nervous man with gambling debts, to misplace the video evidence. The clerk, sweating, in his cheap suit, swapped the file with a blank USB, and when Sarah called for it, the screen flickered. Empty. Gasps filled the court, and Amara's stomach plummeted, her hope unraveling. Sarah protested, but the judge, frowning, noted the technical issue. Caldwell's shadow didn't stop there. His political allies, old friends from Atlanta's power circles, leaned on the judge, whispering about campaign funds. The ruling came swift, a gavel's crack like a gunshot. Case dismissed for insufficient proof. Amara's jaw dropped, tears stinging as Sarah argued, her voice drowned by the judge's finality. The courtroom cleared, reporters scrambling, but the worst was yet to come. As Amara stepped onto the courthouse steps, a mob of 50 rallied by Caldwell's online trolls, waited, their faces twisted with hate. They screamed slurs, echoing Holt's venom, and hurled bottles, glass shattering at Amara's feet. One struck her arm, a sharp pain blooming, blood seeping through her blouse. Darius shielded her, Lena shouting for police, but the officers, nearby, Caldwell's cronies, stood idle, smirking. Amara stumbled, her knees weak as the mob pressed closer, their chants a wall of rage. A bystander, moved by her viral video, pulled her into a car, speeding her to safety. At the hotel, Lena bandaged Amara's arm, her hand shaking, while Darius called security, his voice hoarse. The case, their last stand, had crumbled, sabotaged by Caldwell's invisible hand. The mob's attack was a new low, turning words into wounds, and Amara felt the city closing in, its streets no longer hers. She stared at her bloodied sleeve, the pain a mirror of her heart. The courtroom had promised justice, but Caldwell's reach was a noose, tightening with each loss. Her parents vowed to appeal, but Sarah warned of Caldwell's influence, her face grim. Amara's resolve flickered, fear battling fury. She'd spoken her truth, only to be silenced again, her body now a target. Caldwell's game was ruthless, his allies everywhere, and the mob's hate was his masterpiece. She clutched her arm, the bruise throbbing, and wondered how to fight a man who owned the rules. Her family's wealth, their power, felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Could she find another way, or was Caldwell's next strike already aimed at her heart? Yo, viewers, have you ever faced a system stacked against you? Would you keep fighting like Amara, or would the mob's hate break you? Comment number 1 if you're rooting for her to rise, and hit like and subscribe to see her next move. Can Amara outsmart Caldwell's dirty tricks, or is his grip on Atlanta too tight to break? Amara Kingston crouched in the dim glow of her hotel room, 7 miles from Atlanta's pulsing skyline, her arm still throbbing from the mob's bottle attack, the courthouse defeat a fresh scar on her soul. The 92-degree night clung to her skin, but Richard Caldwell's relentless war, from Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur to the rigged lawsuit, burned hotter, each loss tightening his grip on her future. Her scholarship was gone, her record marred by an unjust arrest, and the death threats whisper lingered, a promise of worse to come. Her parents, Darius and Lena, paced the hotel suite, their billionaire empire bruised but unbowed, vowing to fight Crestwood's racism. Lena's tablet flickered with legal strategies, while Darius, his eyes bloodshot, called allies for support. Amara, her braids frayed, felt hope slipping, the system's weight crushing her. The courtroom had betrayed her, the mob had bloodied her, and Caldwell's smirk haunted her dreams. She needed a new weapon, something to hit him where it hurt. Enter Jaden Brooks, her classmate, a lanky tech genius who'd hacked school servers for fun. Over a late-night call, his voice crackling through her phone, Jaden offered to dig into Caldwell's digital dirt. Amara hesitated, the protest's fallout still raw, but desperation won. They met in a dingy coffee shop, 5 miles from Crestwood, its air thick with espresso and secrecy. Jaden's laptop glowed, his fingers flying, as he breached Caldwell's private email server, a fortress of encrypted files. Amara leaned close, her heart racing as emails loaded, each one a bomb. Caldwell bribing the investigation committee, paying Mia to betray her, and funding the mob's attack. One email even mocked Holt's slur, calling it effective. Amara's jaw tightened, fury replacing fear. They leaked the emails to a whistleblower site, anonymizing their tracks, and by morning, the internet erupted. News outlets splashed the emails across screens, hashtags like Stark Caldwell exposed trending, with 4 million hits. Reporters camped outside Caldwell's penthouse, his polished image cracking. Amara watched the chaos from her hotel, a grin breaking through her exhaustion. Her parents high-fived, Lena calling it a knockout. Was this the blow to end Caldwell's reign? The public turned, petitions demanding his resignation hitting 80,000 signatures. A national anchor called him a disgrace to Atlanta, and Crestwood's board scheduled an emergency meeting. Amara felt light, her chest unburdened, believing she'd finally turned the tide. She hugged Jaden's grainy FaceTime image, his gap-toothed smile infectious. But Caldwell, cornered in his glass-walled office, wasn't done. He hired a cybersecurity firm, tracing the leak to Jaden's IP address, a sloppy mistake from a rushed job. By noon, police stormed Jaden's apartment, cuffing him for cybercrime, his laptop seized. Caldwell's PR team spun a tale, painting Jaden as a delinquent and Amara as his mastermind. News channels, swayed by Caldwell's donations, ran the story, and Amara's name, briefly a beacon, was dragged back into the mud. Worse, Caldwell's allies raided the hotel at midnight, claiming a security breach. Officers tore through Amara's room, accusing her of orchestrating the hack. Lena's lawyer stalled them, but the damage was done. The raid was a spectacle, broadcast live, and Kingston Innovations stock plummeted 20% by dawn, investors spooked by rumors of criminal ties. Amara watched the ticker on Lena's tablet, each dip a knife to her family's empire. Darius slammed his phone, his voice hoarse as Lena traced the rumors to Caldwell's media cronies. The emails had exposed his corruption, but Caldwell's counterstrike was surgical, targeting Jaden's freedom and her parents' legacy. Amara's victory, so sweet hours ago, soured into despair. She sat on the hotel bed, the city's lights mocking her through the window. Jaden's arrest was her fault, the stock crash her burden. Her family's wealth, once a shield, now felt like a target, vulnerable to Caldwell's web. She scrolled through hate comments, each one a slur, echoing the mob's screams. The leak had wounded Caldwell, but he'd struck back harder, turning her weapon against her. Lena vowed to free Jaden, Darius to rebuild their stock, but Amara saw the truth. Caldwell played chess while she played checkers. Her room felt smaller, the thigh walls pressing in as she clutched her phone. The whistleblower site still open, its victory hollow. The hack had been her gamble, a chance to reclaim her voice, but Caldwell's retaliation was a storm, tearing through her life. She stared at Jaden's last text. "We got him." Now a cruel irony. Her parents' empire teetered, her friend faced jail, and Caldwell's shadow grew longer, his next move a mystery. Amara's resolve wavered, fear gnawing at her edges, but a spark remained. She'd hurt him once. She could do it again, but the cost was climbing, and her family's strength was fraying. Could she find another way before Caldwell crushed them all? Amara Kingston sat in the sterile Atlanta hotel suite, 6 miles from the skyline's faint glow, her heart heavy with the wreckage of Jaden's arrest and Kingston Innovations' stock crash, each blow a testament to Richard Caldwell's ruthless grip. The 90-degree evening air felt suffocating, but the memory of Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur, the rigged lawsuit, and the mob's bottles stung sharper, each injustice a brick in the wall closing her in. Her scholarship was a distant dream, her reputation shredded, and the death threats echo made sleep impossible. Her parents, Darius and Lena, refused to let Crestwood bury their daughter. Over a tense dinner, the hotel's fluorescent lights harsh, Lena proposed a bold move: fund a new scholarship to force Amara's return to the academy. Darius, his jaw tight, agreed, wiring $5 million to Crestwood's endowment, a power play to bend the board. Amara, her braids tucked under a cap, felt a spark of hope, her bruised spirit lifting at the thought of reclaiming her place. She spent days preparing, ironing her Crestwood uniform, its navy crest a symbol of her fight. Lena's PR firm spun the scholarship as a triumph, and news outlets praised the Kingston's generosity, boosting their stock by 5%. The board, under public pressure, reinstated Amara, and she walked toward Crestwood's gates on a 95-degree morning, her backpack heavy, her stride defiant. Classmates waved, some whispering support, and Amara's chest swelled, her return a middle finger to Caldwell's schemes. Could this be her comeback, a chance to rewrite her story? She imagined facing Holt, her chin high, proving she belonged. But Richard Caldwell, under investigation but untouchable, sat in his mahogany office 15 miles away, plotting his next move. He convinced the board, spooked by the email leak's fallout, to bar Amara from campus, citing safety concerns tied to her disruptive protest. The vote was swift, greased by Caldwell's donations, and by noon security guards in black uniforms stood at Crestwood's entrance, their radios crackling. Amara approached, her smile fading as a guard, his face stone, blocked her path. He barked, "You're not allowed in," and pointed to a sign, "Restricted access." Classmates gawked, some snickering, their phones recording as Amara argued, her voice rising. The guard shoved her back, her backpack slipping, and a crowd formed, their whispers a chorus of humiliation. Amara's cheeks burned, her triumph crushed, in minutes. She stumbled away, tears blurring the pavement, the academy's gates slamming shut. Darius and Lena, alerted by a classmate's text, raced to Crestwood, their SUV screeching to a stop. But the guards stood firm, backed by Caldwell's orders. Lena's lawyer threatened a lawsuit, but the board's statement leaked to the press called Amara a threat to order. The public, swayed by Caldwell's spin, turned, comments flooding her old viral video with hate. Amara returned to the hotel, her uniform crumpled, her spirit battered. That night, under a starless sky, a deafening explosion shook the city. Amara bolted upright, her heart racing as sirens wailed. She ran to the window, the skyline glowing red. Their Buckhead mansion 3 miles away was a fireball, flames devouring its marble halls. A note slipped under the hotel door read, "Leave Atlanta," the words scrawled in black ink. Darius called 911, but firefighters, delayed by a dispatch error tied to Caldwell's allies, arrived too late. The mansion burned to ash, its wreckage televised, a public execution of the Kingston's legacy. Lena clutched Amara, her hands trembling, as Darius surveyed security feeds, finding no trace of the bomber. Police, led by an officer with Caldwell's campaign pin, called it arson, likely random, refusing to investigate. Amara stood in the hotel, the air thick with smoke's distant scent, her body numb. The scholarship had promised redemption, but the lockout was a public shaming, and the firebombing was a death knell, stripping her family's home. Caldwell's retaliation was no longer subtle, his power a blade at their throats. She stared at the note, its threat a mirror of the death call, each word a vow of ruin. Her parents vowed to rebuild, but Lena's eyes darted to the door, fear creeping in. Amara's return to Crestwood had been her stand, a chance to reclaim her place, but Caldwell's trap had burned it all, leaving ashes and terror. Her family's wealth, once a fortress, was crumbling, and Atlanta felt like a cage. She clutched the note, her fingers shaking, and felt a fire stir. Caldwell wanted her gone, but she'd fight, even if it cost everything. The lockout was a wound, the fire a war cry, and his next strike loomed darker than ever. Could she survive a man who burned homes to win? Amara Kingston huddled in a cramped Atlanta hotel room, 5 miles from the skyline's mocking glow. The ashes of her family's firebombed mansion, a fresh wound in the 90-degree night air. Richard Caldwell's relentless campaign, from Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur to the school lockout, had stripped her scholarship, her home, and her safety, each blow a hammer forging her resolve. The death threats chill, the mob's bottles, and Jaden's arrest weighed heavy, but the abusive image of her burned mansion, televised like a trophy, lit a fire in her gut. Her parents, Darius and Lena, clung to their billionaire empire's fraying edges, their faces gaunt as they plotted in the hotel's dim light. Lena's tablet tracked Kingston Innovations' recovering stock, while Darius called allies, his voice strained. Amara, her braids loose, refused to break. The lockout had shamed her, the firebombing nearly killed her, but she saw a crack in Caldwell's armor, his public image. She found refuge in a secret student group, Crestwood Rebels, meeting in a basement 20 miles from campus, their walls plastered with protest flyers. Led by Tara, a fierce senior, the group had dirt on Caldwell's bribes. Amara joined, her heart racing, sharing her story of Holt's slur, the rigged lawsuit, and the mansion's flames. Tara's laptop held files, bank records linking Caldwell to the investigation's fixers and the mob's organizers. Amara's eyes widened, hope flickering. They planned to expose him at Crestwood's annual gala, a glitzy event attended by Atlanta's elite, 10 miles from the hotel. Amara spent nights strategizing, her fingers smudged with ink as she drafted speeches. Darius funded fake IDs. Lena secured press passes, and Amara, disguised in a sleek black dress, slipped into the gala, its chandeliers casting diamonds on the crowd. Her pulse thundered as she hacked the event's projector, Tara's files ready to burn. When Caldwell took the stage, his smile polished, Amara hit play. Screens flared with his bank records, emails bragging about crushing the Kingston girl, and texts to the firebombers. Gasps ripped through the ballroom, champagne glasses clattering. Reporters snapped photos, live streaming the chaos, and Moderator's Caldwell exposed hit 5 million views. Caldwell's face drained, his tie askew as he fled the stage. The board, cornered, suspended him that night, and Amara slipped out, her heart soaring. She hugged Tara in the basement, their laughter echoing, believing they'd broken his spine. Was this the end of Caldwell's reign? Social media roared, petitions for his arrest, climbing to 90,000. Lena's PR firm amplified the story, and national anchors called it a reckoning. Amara felt invincible, her voice finally shattering Crestwood's walls. But Caldwell, holed up in a safe house 30 miles away, wasn't finished. He'd bribed Ethan, a quiet group member, with $20,000 to betray them. Ethan, desperate for college funds, slipped Caldwell their plans, including Amara's role. By dawn, police raided the basement, tipped by Ethan's texts, charging Amara with conspiracy to defame. Handcuffs bit her wrists, her disguise useless, as officers dragged her to a van. Tara's screams faded, and Amara's stomach churned, betrayal cutting deeper than the mob's glass. Worse, Caldwell's allies struck overnight, disbarring Lena's lawyer, Sarah, with a forged ethics complaint. The news hit like a brick. Sarah's license was gone, leaving the Kingstons defenseless. Amara, released on bail, returned to the hotel, her spirit battered. Lena traced Ethan's bank account, finding Caldwell's payment, while Darius raged, his fists clenched. The gala's triumph, so electric, crumbled into ash. The conspiracy charge tainted Amara's name, headlines twisting her into a radical. Social media turned, her old video buried under hate. She stared at Tara's last text. We did it. Now, a cruel lie. Caldwell's men, Ethan's tip revealed, were tracking her family's every move, their hotel no longer safe. Amara's victory had humiliated Caldwell, but his retaliation was a guillotine, slicing through her allies and her freedom. Her parents vowed to fight, but Lena's eyes flicked to the door, fear creeping in. Amara sat on the bed, the city's lights a distant taunt, her body heavy. The group had been her army, the gala her battlefield, but Ethan's betrayal and the lawyer's loss left her exposed. Caldwell's shadow loomed, his spies closing in, and his next move promised blood. She clutched her phone, the gala's footage still trending, its glory hollow. Her family's wealth was a fading shield, their lawyer gone, and Atlanta felt like a trap. Could she outrun Caldwell's wrath, or was she already marked? Yo, viewers, what would you do if your ally sold you out for cash? Can you feel Amara's rage at Ethan's stab? Comment number 1 if you'd stand with her against betrayal, and hit like and subscribe to follow her fight. Will Amara escape Caldwell's tightening net, or is his next trap already set? Amara Kingston crouched in a shadowy motel room, 10 miles from Atlanta's glittering skyline, the 90-degree night thick with dread as Richard Caldwell's conspiracy charge tightened its noose around her life. The gala's triumph, exposing His bribes had crumbled under Ethan's betrayal, leaving her lawyerless, her family's mansion ashes, and her name a target for Crestwood's hate. Miss Evelyn Holt's racial slur, the lockout, and the firebombing were scars. But the police, raid spurred by Ethan's tip, made her a fugitive, her face plastered on news screens. Her parents, Darius and Lena, fought to clear her. Their billionaire resources stretched thin, their hotel no longer safe. Lena's tablet tracked police scanners, while Darius, his eyes hollow, wired funds to secure a safe house. Amara, her braids, tucked under a hoodie, knew she couldn't stay still. Caldwell's men were closing in, their trackers fueled by his wealth. She slipped out, her sneakers silent on the motel's cracked pavement, and boarded a bus to a safe house 20 miles north, a rundown cabin hidden in pine woods. There, using a burner phone funded by Darius, she contacted Zoe, a journalist who'd supported her viral video. Amara's voice shook as she revealed Caldwell's ties to a racist militia, a secret buried in the gala's leaked files. She sent Zoe encrypted documents, bank transfers showing Caldwell arming a group called the White Dawn, their logo a fist clutching a torch. Zoe promised a bombshell story, and Amara's heart raced, hope flaring as she pictured Caldwell's empire collapsing. The files hit Zoe's inbox, and Amara exhaled, believing she'd struck a fatal blow. Could this be the move to end his terror? She paced the cabin, its wooden walls creaking, imagining headlines tearing Caldwell apart. But Caldwell, in a fortified estate 30 miles away, was steps ahead. His cybersecurity team, hired after Jaden's hack, traced Amara's burner phone, pinpointing the safe house. He called in the White Dawn, a dozen armed men in black trucks, their loyalty bought with his millions. At midnight, under a moonless sky, their engines roared, converging on the cabin. Amara, dozing on a cot, woke to headlights slicing through the windows, her pulse hammering. Boots crunched gravel, voices barking orders, and a rifle's click froze her blood. She grabbed her backpack, stuffing the burner phone inside, and bolted through a back window, glass grazing her arm. Pine needles stabbed her feet as she sprinted, the militia's flashlights sweeping like wolves. Gunshots cracked, bullets splintering trees, and Amara dove behind a log, her breath ragged. Her phone buzzed. Zoe's text confirming the story was live, but it was no shield now. She crawled through mud, evading capture by inches, her hoodie snagging on thorns. After a mile, the militia retreated, their radios crackling with curses. But Amara's relief was fleeting. Dawn brought worse. Police, tipped by Caldwell, raided her parents' hotel, detaining Darius and Lena for aiding a fugitive. News channels, fed by Caldwell's allies, aired footage of their arrest. Kingston Innovation stock diving another 15%. Amara, hiding in a gas station bathroom 15 miles from the cabin, saw the broadcast on a flickering TV, her stomach lurching. Her parents' faces, cuffed and grim, were a knife to her heart. She checked her phone, finding a new message from an unknown number. "Caldwell knows where you are." Her hands shook, the words, a death knell. She smashed the phone, its screen shattering, and slipped into the dawn, her hoodie soaked with sweat. The evidence sent to Zoe had been her lifeline, a chance to bury Caldwell. But his militia's raid turned it to dust, and her parents' detention was a gut punch, stripping her last anchors. Caldwell's reach was a hydra, each cut spawning new heads. She had no safe house, no family, only her wits against a man who hunted with armies. The gas station's neon buzzed, its light harsh on her tear-streaked face. Her escape was a miracle, but the cost was crippling, her parents now pawns in Caldwell's game. She remembered Zoe's text, the story live, but the militia's guns drowned out hope. Atlanta's streets, once her home, were a maze of traps, every shadow a threat. Amara's resolve flickered, fear choking her, but she clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She'd wounded Caldwell, and he'd bled, but his retaliation was a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. Her family's wealth, their power, was a broken sword, and she was alone, a fugitive with nowhere to run. Could she keep fighting, or was Caldwell's next move already checkmate? Amara Kingston hid in a grimy Atlanta motel, 12 miles from the skyline's taunting glow, her heart pounding as the militia raid's gunshots still echoed in her mind. The threatening text, Caldwell knows where you are, a fresh wound, in the 90-degree dawn. Richard Caldwell's war, from Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur to her parents' detention, had stripped her scholarship, her home, and her freedom, each blow a testament to his chokehold on her life. The conspiracy charge made her a fugitive, her face a ghost on news feeds, and the loss of Darius and Lena to police custody left her alone, a 16-year-old against a billionaire's army. Her braids matted, her hoodie stained with mud from the safe house escape. Amara clung to one hope: Zoe, the journalist who'd received her evidence of Caldwell's ties to the White Dawn militia. Holed up in the motel, its neon sign buzzing like a dying fly, she checked a burner phone, her fingers trembling as Zoe's article went live. The story exploded, headlining national outlets with proof of Caldwell's bank transfers to the militia, their Torch Fist logo splashed across screens. Social media ignited. Just Caldwell exposed trending with 6 million hits, and protests erupted outside Crestwood Academy, 500 chanting for justice. News anchors called Caldwell a menace, and his allies, 3 city council members, were arrested for taking his bribes, their cuffs televised live. Amara, crouched on the motel's sagging bed, watched the chaos unfold on a cracked TV, her chest swelling with fragile hope. The article was her dagger, piercing Caldwell's armor, and the public's rage felt like her army. Could this be the strike to topple his empire? She texted Zoe, "You did it," her fingers shaking with relief, imagining her parents freed, her name cleared. The protests grew, blocking Atlanta's streets, and Crestwood's board, reeling from the gala's fallout, issued a statement distancing themselves from Caldwell. Amara dared to dream of returning home. Her fight finally won. But Caldwell, barricaded in a safe house 40 miles away, wasn't bleeding out. He wired $50,000 to Zoe, the journalist Amara trusted, buying her silence and a betrayal. Zoe, swayed by the cash and Caldwell's threats, published a follow-up, twisting the story to claim Amara fabricated the militia evidence, citing anonymous sources. The article hit like a bomb, news channels parroting the lie, and public opinion flipped overnight. Social media, once her ally, turned vicious, branding Amara a liar and troublemaker, her old viral video buried under slurs. Protests fizzled, the crowd shrinking to 50, and justice for Amara became a mockery. Amara's motel TV blared the betrayal, Zoe's face smug as she spun lies on a talk show. Her stomach churned, the sting of Ethan's betrayal at the gala. Dwarfed by this gut punch, she smashed the remote, its plastic cracking, her hope shattered. As dawn broke, a worse blow landed. Sirens screamed, and Amara peered through the motel's blinds, her pulse racing. A fireball lit the skyline, 8 miles away, where Kingston Innovations headquarters stood. Caldwell's men, White Dawn operatives, had firebombed the glass tower, its 30 stories reduced to a smoldering husk. News helicopters circled, broadcasting the destruction, estimating $2 billion in losses. The stock, already battered, crashed to pennies, investors fleeing as Caldwell's media allies blamed the Kingstons' criminal ties. Amara's knees buckled, her parents' empire, their shield, now rubble. She checked her burner phone, finding a message from Lena, smuggled from detention. "Stay hidden. We're okay." But they weren't. The fire was Caldwell's checkmate, punishing her strike. Amara sank to the floor, the motel's carpet reeking of mildew, her body trembling. The expose had been her lifeline, a chance to bury Caldwell. But Zoe's betrayal turned it to poison, and the headquarters' destruction was a death blow, stripping her family's power. She was hunted, not just by police but by a public fed lies, her face a target on every screen. Atlanta's streets, her childhood playground, were a death trap, every corner hiding Caldwell's eyes. Her parents, cuffed and powerless, couldn't save her now. She clutched the phone, Zoe's article still open, its lies a mirror of her pain. The protests had promised victory, but Caldwell's retaliation was a hurricane, leveling her world. Her resolve wavered, despair clawing at her, but a spark flickered. She'd hurt him, and he'd flinched. But his counterstrike was apocalyptic, leaving her with nothing but her will. The motel's walls closed in, the neons buzz a taunt as she planned her final stand. Caldwell wanted her erased, but she'd fight, even if it killed her. The expose was dust, the fire a warning, and his next move loomed darker than ever. Could she rise from this ruin, or was Caldwell's wrath unstoppable? Amara Kingston crouched in a derelict Atlanta warehouse, 15 miles from the skyline's fading pulse, her breath shallow in the 90-degree dusk as the firebombed ruins of Kingston Innovations headquarters smoldered in her memory. Zoe's betrayal a fresh knife in her gut. Richard Caldwell's relentless crusade, sparked by Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur, had obliterated her scholarship, her family's mansion, and their empire, leaving her a fugitive, hunted by police and a public fed lies. Her parents, Darius and Lena, languished in detention, their billionaire power crippled, and Amara, her braids tangled, her hoodie torn from the militia raid, was alone, her burner phone shattered, her allies gone. The motel's safety was a ghost, and Caldwell's White Dawn militia stalked her every move, their torch fist logo a specter in her nightmares. But Amara's fire burned, fueled by every injustice, the lockout's humiliation, the gala's betrayal, the headquarters' flames. She'd found a lead in Zoe's leaked files, a hidden server in Caldwell's estate 20 miles away, holding recordings of his racist rants. If she could broadcast them, his empire would collapse. Using her parents' last funds, wired through a loyal accountant, she bought a used laptop and a drone, its camera rigged to stream. Under a starless sky, she trekked through woods, her sneakers sinking in mud, the estate's iron gates looming like a fortress. Her heart pounded as she hacked the server, her fingers trembling, the drone hovering above, ready to beam the files live. The server yielded gold, Caldwell's voice, venomous, boasting of keeping Atlanta pure, mocking her family's uppity wealth, and ordering the firebombing. Amara uploaded the files to a global streaming site, her pulse racing as the drone broadcast them to millions. Screens worldwide lit up, from Times Square to Tokyo, Gavin Caldwell exposed hitting 10 million views in hours. Protests erupted, 1,000 strong outside Crestwood, and news anchors demanded his arrest. Amara slipped into the estate's basement, her laptop glowing, to confront Caldwell face to face. The mansion's marble halls reeked of cigar smoke, and Caldwell, cornered in his study, his silver hair disheveled, sneered as she entered. Her voice shook but held firm, demanding he confess to the world. His eyes glinted, unyielding, and he pulled a pistol from his desk, its barrel cold against her forehead. Amara froze, her breath caught, but she stared him down, her words a blade. "You're done." Caldwell's hand trembled, his empire crumbling as sirens wailed outside. Darius and Lena, freed by allies who'd bribed a judge, stormed in with police, their faces fierce. Officers, no longer Caldwell's pawns, cuffed him, his pistol clattering to the floor. His rants, still streaming, echoed through the room, a self-inflicted wound. Amara's knees weakened, relief flooding her as Caldwell was dragged away, his screams drowned by the drone's feed. Her parents hugged her, Lena's tears soaking her shoulder, Darius's grip iron. The estate's lights flickered, the world watching as Caldwell's arrest trended, 15 million hits and climbing. Amara's heart soared, her fight vindicated, the truth finally free. She'd won, hadn't she? They stepped outside, the air thick with victory, the skyline glowing like a promise. But as they crossed the lawn, a crack split the night, a sniper's bullet whistling past Amara's head, grazing her cheek. Blood trickled, hot and sharp as she dove to the ground, her parents shouting. The shooter, a White Dawn operative hired by Caldwell's secret partner, vanished into the woods, his scope glinting. Police swept the area, finding only a spent casing, but Amara's pulse thundered, her victory poisoned. The bullet was a message, Caldwell's final play, even from a cell. Her cheek stung, the pain a warning of a deeper enemy, unseen but lethal. Darius scanned the trees, his face grim, while Lena bandaged Amara's wound, her hands shaking. The arrest had felt like the end, a climax to her war, but the sniper's shot was a scream. Caldwell wasn't alone. His rants had exposed him, but his network, a hydra of hate, lived on. Amara stood, her legs unsteady, the estate's grandeur mocking her, The broadcast was her triumph, but the bullet was a vow, promising more blood. Her parents' freedom. Their embrace was a fragile shield against a foe she couldn't name. Atlanta's night swallowed her hope, its shadows alive with threats. She'd broken Caldwell, but at what cost? Her family's empire was rubble, her face scarred, and the sniper's aim was a clock ticking down. Amara clutched her laptop. The streams still live, its numbers climbing, but her eyes searched the darkness, fear and fire warring within. She'd fought a giant, but another loomed, and her next step could be her last. Could she face a new enemy, or was the sniper's bullet just the beginning? Amara Kingston lay in a sterile Atlanta hospital bed, 8 miles from the skyline's defiant glow, her cheek stinging from the sniper's grazing bullet, the echo of Richard Caldwell's arrest still ringing in her ears like a fragile victory in the 90-degree morning haze. The broadcast of his racist rants, streamed from his estate server, had shattered his empire, landing him in cuffs, but the sniper's shot, a whisper of a deeper enemy, haunted her. Her parents, Darius and Lena, sat beside her, their billionaire, aura dimmed by the loss of their mansion and Kingston Innovations headquarters, their faces etched with relief yet shadowed by fear. The hospital's antiseptic scent clung to Amara's skin, her braids loose, her body aching from months of battles. Ms. Evelyn Holt's racial slur, the scholarship's theft, the lockout's shame, the firebombing's terror, and the militia's guns. Each scar, from the mob's bottles to the conspiracy charge, was a testament to Caldwell's war, but his downfall felt like her dawn. News channels looped footage of his arrest, 15 million views and climbing, and protests, 2,000. Strong swarmed Crestwood Academy demanding reform. The board, gutted by public rage, restored Amara's scholarship citing new evidence, and issued an apology, their words hollow but binding. Darius gripped her hand, his smile weary, while Lena, her tablet dark, whispered, "You did it, baby." Amara's chest swelled, her pain easing as she pictured returning to Crestwood, her head high, Holt's smirk erased. The hospital discharged her, and she stepped into a city changed, Atlanta's streets alive with chants for justice. A rally, organized by her old student group, awaited her 5 miles away, under a 100-degree sun. Amara, in a white dress, took the stage, her voice steady, recounting her fight, the expulsion, the betrayal, the flames, and the sniper's aim. 10,000 cheered, their signs waving, and news drones buzzed overhead, streaming to 20 million. She spoke of resilience, of shattering systems, her words a beacon inspiring a generation. Social media crowned her a hero, Amara rising trending with 8 million hits, and colleges, once wary, offered scholarships. Her parents stood behind her, their pride a shield, and Amara felt whole, believing the war was won. Could this be her future, a world where her voice mattered? Crestwood's gates, once barred, opened wide, and the board fired Holt, her career ashes. Lena's lawyer, reinstated, filed suits to rebuild their empire, and Kingston Innovations stock twitched. Upward, investors sensing hope, Amara walked off the stage, her heart light, the crowd's roar a lullaby. But as night fell, a shadow crept in. A courier, unnoticed, slipped a package to her hospital room, now empty, but traced to her. Inside was a leaked document, its pages, cold, a manifesto from a national racist network, the Order of Purity, naming Caldwell as a pawn, a foot soldier for a senator who'd mentored Holt years ago. The senator, a silver-tongued power broker with White House ties, had funded the White Dawn militia, orchestrated the fire bombings, and hired the sniper, his name scrawled in coded ink. A photo slid from the package, grainy but chilling. Amara, asleep in her hospital bed, her face framed by a sniper's lens, time-stamped yesterday. A note inked in red read, "Silence or death." Her breath caught, the rally's warmth vanishing, replaced by ice. She showed Darius and Lena, their faces paling as they scanned the document, its words a map to a conspiracy deeper than Caldwell's: greed. The senator's reach dwarfed their wealth, his allies in Congress, the FBI, and beyond, a hydra with 1,000 heads. Amara's victory, so bright, was a spark in a storm. Caldwell's fall a distraction from the true beast. The hospital's walls seem to close, the skylines glow a lie. Lena clutched the photo, her hands trembling, while Darius called security, his voice low. But the courier was gone. A ghost. Amara's rally had inspired millions, but this threat was a guillotine, promising her end. Her scholarship, her voice, felt like paper against a machine that thrived on hate. She stood, her legs unsteady, the document heavy in her hands. The crowd's cheers echoed, but the senator's shadow loomed, his sniper still out there, his network alive. Her parents vowed to fight, but fear cracked their resolve, their empire too broken to shield her. Amara's heart raced, fury battling terror, as she memorized the senator's name, a vow forming. Caldwell was caged, but the war wasn't over. It was bigger, darker, and she was its target. She clutched the photo, her reflection in its gloss a warrior's face, scarred but unbowed. The rally was her triumph, but the senator's threat was a war cry, daring her to rise again. Atlanta's night swallowed her hope, but Amara's fire burned, her next fight just beginning. Could she challenge a titan? Or was her story already written? Amara Kingston's journey in Teacher Expels Black Student, then her billionaire parents step in, unveils profound lessons about resilience, systemic racism, and the fight for justice. First, Amara's unyielding spirit teaches us that courage can shine even when the odds seem insurmountable. Despite facing a teacher's racial slur, a rigged investigation, a firebombed home, and a sniper's bullet, she never surrendered, showing that inner strength can outlast external hate. Her story underscores the importance of standing firm against injustice, no matter how powerful the oppressor. Second, the narrative exposes the chilling reality of systemic racism, where institutions like Crestwood Academy, manipulated by figures like Richard Caldwell, protect bigotry over truth. Amara's battles, scholarship loss, false arrests, and media betrayal reveal how deeply racism is woven into society's fabric, urging us to question and dismantle these structures. Third, the shocking twist, revealing a senator's racist network, reminds us that victories are often incomplete. Caldwell's arrest was a triumph, but the larger fight persists, teaching us to stay vigilant. Finally, Amara's parents, Darius and Lena, highlight the power of collective support. Their wealth and resolve amplified her voice, showing that allyship can tip the scales. This story challenges us to confront racism in our own communities, to speak out, and to support those fighting for fairness. Amara's scars are a call to action. We must build a world where no one faces such hate alone. So, viewers, what injustice have you seen that needs a voice? Comment number 1 if you're inspired to fight racism. Hit like, subscribe, and share to spread Amara's story. Thank you for joining this journey. Here's to a future where justice prevails. Stay strong and keep pushing for change.